Hello, iCourse students, and welcome to Compass 3. I'm really excited to be joining you this semester in the culminating phase of your Compass experience here in Compass 3.
In Compass 1, you learned about yourself. In Compass 2, you learned about yourself working on teams with others. So in Compass 3, to round out your talent management experience, you'll learn about yourself as a leader among peers. So let's jump into our first week of Compass 3.
Compass 3 is focused on teaching you the fundamentals of leadership, on how to develop and how to talk about your own unique skill set when it comes to leadership, or your brand of leadership. And that just means the style of leadership that comes most naturally to you. So we could start by talking about, why does leadership matter? Why is it that Kelly students are taking a leadership course as part of their iCore experience? And one really obvious answer, of course, is that companies care about leadership. They care about hiring leaders and they care about promoting leaders. In fact, the American Management Association did an exhaustive survey globally. They gave companies a long list of 120 items, and they asked them to rank those items in terms of what was most important to their individual organizations. In North America, leadership ranked as number one. It was the single most important criteria on that list for these companies. In Europe, it ranks number three. And for 65% of the companies globally that were surveyed, it ranked somewhere in the top five. So, because leadership matters to companies, it matters when it comes to hiring you. In fact, NACE found when they did a survey and they asked employers what are the top 10 things that they're looking for when they're going through all of your resumes. And they said at the top 10, number two was leadership. They want to see leadership experience reflected in your resume by the time you're leaving college and going into the job market to look for your first position. So it's one of those things that's really important to begin not only developing, but also developing a way to talk about and to articulate and to distinguish about yourself. Recently, when we had a Kelly alumni, Kazima Shipchandler, come to campus, he's a CFO for GE internationally. He had this to say about the importance of leadership.
But the biggest thing that you're going to find in your careers, and it's always been the biggest differentiator in my view, and I think always will be, is leadership. Leadership, no matter what your background is the hallmark differentiator. Nothing will ever matter more than leadership. Technical proficiency matters. Being smart matters and certainly helps. But what I've found time and time again is that while being smart helps, the smartest guy in the room doesn't necessarily rise to the top. And it's because the great leaders have charisma, they know how to get things done, they have passion, and they have the ability to inspire others to achieve more than they could without that leader otherwise being there. And I think as you kind of think about your careers, that is the single biggest thing that you should think about and try to cultivate in college, because this is basically a learning laboratory. Even if you screw up every single day at it, view it as a learning experience. Be the president of this or the vice president of that or the treasury of this or the secretary of that. I mean, I know you guys are all trying to load up your resumes on this stuff anyway. So, this is the kind of thing that you should, don't use it as a resume filler. Actively practice skills that are going to matter when you get into the workforce, because that is going to be the differentiator when you join the workforce. With respect to leadership, how do we identify it? That was the question.
How do you assess it?
Yeah, how do we assess it? I think here's the way I assess it. I'm not going to say that this is how everybody at GE does, but I think this tends to be true. But this is how I do. The first thing is that I think the single biggest hallmark trait of a leader is someone who's able to take charge of a room without actually having any power. Okay, so it's easy for me to get up here and you guys have to listen to me because I've got the mic and I'm a little bit older, maybe I have a little bit more experience, so you guys are vaguely interested in what I have to say. Okay, that's easy. All right, real influence in leadership is when you don't have the title, you don't have the power, and you're still able to get everybody else to get something done.
Leadership, real effective leadership, isn't leaning on a title and letting it prop you up with authority. It's influencing the people around you, meaning the peers beside you, the managers above you, and the people below you. Kazima's definition of leadership is perfect. Leadership is when you don't have the title, You don't have the power, and you're still able to get everybody to get something done. Or a more textbook definition of this would be the ability to influence the actions and opinions of others in a desired direction toward a worthwhile objective. Or, to put it in one word, leadership is influence. Because we heard time and time again from the business leaders and recruiters that we talked to that it was so important for you to be able to lead among your peers without titles and without positions, we have focused Compass 3 around the importance of leading among peers. That ability to lead and influence your peers is the skill set that will serve you the best in your last couple of years here at Kelly, especially in your I-Corps case at the end of this semester, but even more importantly, in your first 3 to 5 years in your career, and really for the whole of your career. So the question is, how do you lead without authority? The one-word answer is, you influence. You learn how to influence your teammates and your coworkers with effective communication, which doesn't really look like this, but more like this. In fact, there are a lot of right ways to be effective and to be influential. The way that I influence people is totally different than the way that you would influence people, or the way that Dean Kestner does it, or the way that Oprah does it. I mean, think for a minute about the differences between, say, Oprah and Donald Trump. They're both leaders. Both are highly influential. Both influence the actions and opinions of others to follow them in their desired direction toward a worthwhile objective. But how they do it is totally different, right? And I doubt that either of them could successfully adopt the other one's style of leadership. It wouldn't come naturally to them. It wouldn't be organic or effective. We all have different styles of influence, different talents for inspiring and motivating the people that are around us. There's no one kind of leader, no one style of leadership. Every one of you can be a leader in your own right, but it's up to you to figure out what your style of leadership is, how you can be the most influential version of yourself. In other words, you've got to figure out what's your brand of leadership. All good leadership does have one common denominator, though. As I said, regardless of our individual styles or strengths, influence is always born of good communication, which means not so much the gift of gab or being the most polished speaker in the room. What it means is understanding who you are, the message that you have to deliver, and the audience that you're trying to deliver that message to. Over and over again, when Professor Bailey Hughes and I were building Compass and talking to business leaders, recruiters, alumni, leaders in the School of Business here at Kelly, we heard three things over and over again: communication, self-awareness, and the ability to work with others in teams. Don't take my word for it. Here's just a sampling of the kinds of things that we heard from business leaders.